Hola! This video is going to cover the two Spanish to-be verbs, ser and estar. Toda la información está libro Avancemos, página 253. For Spanish 1, we are currently in Unit 5, Lesson 1. Our goal for this particular video lesson is to learn the difference between ser and estar, then practice using these two verbs to describe people and locations. So ser and estar, we've learned both of these verbs already. They both mean to be, but they have different uses. So in this picture here, it gives you some examples of the uses of ser and estar. I'm going to teach you those in this video as well. To connect this with English, we know in English we only have one to-be verb that we use for all sorts of different things. However, in Spanish, we need to remember that there are two different ways to say to be depending on the context. Remember, we studied these previously on page 37 and page 115, so you might want to review your notes and conjugations accordingly. Good news is we've already learned how to conjugate both of these verbs, so we're going to recycle that information. ¿Recuerdas el verbo ser? Soy, eres, es, somos, sois, son. Both of these are irregular verbs. We need to remember the conjugations first. So that's step one, is knowing our conjugations. The verb estar, once again, a little bit more regular of a verb. So we know what do we do to an AR verb, take the AR, kick it to the curb. What do we do when that is done? O, as, a, amos, a, isan. This one sort of follows that pattern for a regular AR verb, with the exception of the yo form. I have to add a y to that form, because esto actually has another meaning. So we want the verb estoy, I am. The other forms, the only difference that's going to be irregular in this verb is I also will have accents on the to form, tu estás. On the la form, it will also go on the same a, está, as well as the vosotros form and ellos, ellas, ustedes form. So the bottom four all have that accent on the a. So step one, do you know your conjugations? Do we remember these? What we're going to get into now are the various uses of ser. So if I know how to conjugate ser, but when exactly do I use it? When would I use this verb over estar? Here's an acronym to help you out with all the uses of ser. It's kind of gross, but we know that the word for human beings is seres humanos. So seres humanos, we're a little bit gross sometimes. So I have a gross acronym for you to remember. It is snot dip. Ugh. Each of these letters, however, represents one of the uses of ser. C stands for characteristics, N is for nationality, O is for origin, which kind of goes with nationality, T for time, D for date, I stands for identification, or ID, abbreviated. Profession and also possessions are times when I will use ser. So we're going to look at some examples using these general categories. Origin. If I want to say I originate or I come from a certain area of the world, I will use ser because this is a little bit more permanent. Soy de Quito. So if I'm born and raised in Quito, I can't change that. I can move to another part of the world, but that's where I originate from. That's my origin. Soy. Another area that we will use ser is with characteristics or for physical traits. So for example, los estudiantes son inteligentes. Since I'm describing the characteristics of my students, this will use ser. The students are intelligent. Profession. Whenever I'm talking about someone's job, once again, this tends to be a little bit more permanent because if I want to switch careers, I have to go back to school, I got to do some training. You don't want your teacher walking into the operating room or to be your lawyer to represent you. I'm going to need to get some more education. So once again, I'm going to use ser because this is semi-permanent. La señora Ramírez es maestra. That is her job. Time and date. This is one that kind of confuses students because we say, well, ser is more permanent. Time and date, you have to look at it like you're describing those characteristics. So if someone is setting the scene of a story, I'm going to describe all the beautiful scenery. It was a beautiful day, the sky was blue, the sun was shining. So all of those things I'm describing. I can also continue to describe by saying it was May 5th, it was 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So you have to look at it as description. So I will use ser. Es la una, son las dos, es lunes, es el 5 de mayo. Time and date always, always, always take ser. Identification and possessions also are a few more reasons when we use ser. So how I identify with things. So I can describe my identity with certain religions, with certain organizations. For you guys, since you don't have quite a career yet, you can identify yourself as students. Soy estudiante. For relationships or possessions, so I own a dog. Yes, he's my possession, but he's more like a family member. So I'm going to say it's more like a relationship. So I identify with my dog as I am the owner, he is my dog. Es mi perro. If I'm talking about a book or some kind of object that's not a living being, same thing goes here. Es mi libro, es mi teléfono, it's mine. I own it. I possess that object. All right, moving on to our next use of to be, the verb estar. Remember, estar we use for location, and we also use for condition of motion. So I have another acronym for you here. So we know that this one often is used to describe the place of things. So our acronym is place. Each of these, however, stands for one of the uses of estar. So the position of an object or the placement of an object, I would use estar because I'm talking about the location. Same thing if I'm talking about where a city is located, I will use estar. Actions when we haven't talked about, but you use estar for the present progressive, which is to say what you're currently doing. So I am eating, I am dancing, etc. So we'll look at that one a little bit today. Main reasons we're going to be using it for Spanish 1 are how you feel, where you are. So those how you feel ones, remember that can be either a condition or an emotion. So for those of us who like it a little more simplified, this might resonate with you. How you feel, where you are, always use the verb estar. So that's a simple way to look at it. If it's not about how you feel or where you or someone or something is at, I'm probably using ser. So that's kind of the simplification of all of these rules. So for location, if I want to say Quito is located in Ecuador, that is where that city is located, I will use the verb estar because I'm talking about location. Remember, conditions can be both physical and emotional in nature. So these things change depending on what's happening around us and in our lives. So when I ask you, ¿Cómo estás?, we know not every single day is going to be a day that you feel fine. Estoy bien. Sometimes we might be happy because something fun's going on around us. Estamos contentos. Or we might be a little bit upset about something. So we might say, están enojados. So remember, emotions change. Okay, this is an additional use. Like I said, this is one we haven't really focused on too much in class, but just know that I also use estar with action. So that's that A in our acronym place. Estoy comiendo. So if I'm in the process of eating, I'm going to use estar in this example. Estoy comiendo. Same thing, if I'm in the middle of dancing, I would say estoy bailando. Muchas gracias por ver este video. Por favor, haga la práctica después. Thanks for watching the video. My students, please make sure you do your practice activity afterwards. Thank you and have a good one. Ciao.